My name is Lauren Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and until 2 weeks before my wedding, I believed I had found the man I would grow old with. It's strange how an entire future can collapse because of one conversation you were never supposed to hear. People always imagine betrayal arriving dramatically, a lipstick stain, a hidden phone, a mysterious text message flashing across a screen. Mine arrived wrapped in laughter. It sounded almost harmless. Almost. Ethan Parker and I had been together for nearly 4 years. We had survived layoffs, family illnesses, long work hours, and all the ordinary storms that convince you a relationship is built to last. 7 months earlier, he had proposed beneath a canopy of autumn leaves in a small botanical garden outside the city. I cried before I even answered. Not because the ring was extravagant, it wasn't, but because I believed it represented something priceless. Commitment, partnership, home. Our wedding was scheduled for exactly 2 weeks away. The invitations had already been mailed. Family members had booked flights. Hotels had been reserved. The venue overlooked a quiet lake, surrounded by old oak trees, exactly the place I'd imagined saying my vows. Or rather, exactly the place I imagined, because Ethan kept reminding me it wasn't quite luxurious enough. Looking back, the warning signs had been there for months. Every decision somehow became another opportunity for me to prove myself. When I suggested Costa Rica for our honeymoon, he sighed. Everyone goes there. When I explained that Bali would nearly double our budget, he smiled politely but spent the next week forwarding me luxury travel videos on Instagram. Whenever friends became engaged, he'd compare their weddings to ours. They booked a ballroom. They hired a live orchestra. They're flying business class. Each comment was subtle enough to dismiss. Together, they became impossible to ignore. Still, I convinced myself wedding stress made everyone unreasonable. Love, I believed, required patience. That illusion shattered on a Thursday night. I had planned to spend the evening at my friend Melissa's apartment, watching old movies. Halfway there, she called. "My daughter has a fever," she said apologetically. "Rain check." "New problem." I turned my car around and headed home exhausted from work and looking forward to nothing more than pajamas and silence. As I unlocked the apartment, I remembered Ethan mentioning he was having a few friends over. I smiled to myself. No problem. I'd quietly head to the bedroom and stay out of their way. Soft music floated from the living room. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed loudly. The apartment smelled like grilled steak and expensive whiskey. I slipped inside without making a sound. Just as I reached the hallway, Ethan's voice rose above everyone else's. "You know," he laughed, "if Lauren really wants to marry me, she should prove she's worth it." Everything inside me stopped. One foot remained frozen on the hardwood floor. Another male voice answered, "Dude, hasn't she planned almost everything already?" Ethan laughed again. "That's the bare minimum." More laughter. I couldn't breathe. Another friend asked, "Didn't she already book that lakeside venue you wanted?" "Yeah," Ethan replied casually, "but I'm talking about the lifestyle. She keeps talking about budgets." Someone chuckled. He continued, "I told her Bali. She comes back with Costa Rica because it's cheaper." Hess scoffed. "If somebody loves you enough, they stop thinking about affordable." The room erupted again. Another voice joined in. "So what's the plan?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "I need to know she can actually keep up with the life I want." I felt my fingers tighten against the bedroom doorknob. Then came the sentence that cut deeper than anything else. My ex-girlfriend Olivia introduced me to this woman at a networking event last year. Someone whistled. "The real estate investor." "Yeah," he laughed. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have gotten her number instead." More laughter. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I might actually be sick. For 5 endless minutes I stood perfectly still, invisible, listening. He complained that my engagement ring wasn't impressive enough. He joked that my sedan embarrassed him. He mocked my salary. He told his friends I was safe. "She's dependable," he said. "But dependable isn't exactly exciting." Another man replied, "Marriage is a long time." Ethan answered quietly, "Exactly why I need to make sure she's enough." Enough. Not loved, not respected. Enough. Those 6 letters echoed louder than every laugh filling the apartment. Memories began crashing into one another. The nights I'd stayed awake helping him finish presentations. The weekends I'd spent touring venues, while he complained about traffic. The overtime I'd worked to help pay wedding deposits. Every compromise, every sacrifice, every excuse I'd made for him. Suddenly, they all looked different. Not like acts of love. Like installments toward an impossible debt that could never be paid. I slowly removed my hand from the doorknob, turned around, opened the front door as quietly as I'd entered, closed it without making a sound. No confrontation, no screaming, no tears. Not yet. I sat inside my car for nearly 2 hours in complete silence. Streetlights reflected across the windshield, while strangers walked past laughing with people who probably loved them exactly as they were. Around midnight, I checked into a nearby hotel. Before turning off the lights, I sent Ethan one text. Melissa and I had a little too much wine. I'm staying here tonight instead of driving back. See you tomorrow. He replied less than a minute later. Sounds good. Love you. Reading those words after everything I'd heard felt almost surreal. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and began dismantling our future, one phone call at a time. The venue came first. The coordinator sounded genuinely sympathetic. I'm so sorry, she said, after I explained there had been a family emergency. Our deposits are unfortunately non-refundable. I understand. $5,000 disappeared in less than 5 minutes. The caterer was next. Then the florist. Then the photographer. Then the DJ. Then the bakery. Each cancellation felt strangely peaceful. Painful, but peaceful. By lunchtime, nearly every remaining payment had been erased. I had lost thousands of dollars. But I had saved myself from spending far more on a marriage where love had become another performance review. The honeymoon cancellation was almost easy. Flexible booking. Only a small processing fee. I stared at the confirmation email for several seconds. Costa Rica. Ironically, the place Ethan had mocked. I smiled for the first time in almost 24 hours. Maybe one day I'd visit it, just not with him. That afternoon, while Ethan was still at work, I returned to our apartment. Everything looked exactly the same. Our framed photos. Our unopened wedding gifts. His jacket hanging beside mine. I packed one suitcase slowly. Clothes. Toiletries. A few family photographs. My grandmother's necklace. Nothing else mattered. I removed my engagement ring. Placed it beside my apartment key on the kitchen counter. Then I wrote one sentence. Good luck finding someone who meets your standards. The wedding is canceled. Don't contact me. I folded the note carefully, set it beside the ring, walked out without looking back. As the apartment door clicked shut behind me, I had no idea that by Monday afternoon, my phone would ring 19 times in a row, and an entire wedding party would discover the truth standing outside locked doors. The first thing I noticed when I turned my phone back on Saturday morning was the number. 47 missed calls. For a few seconds, I simply stared at the screen. Then the messages began loading. 32 of them. At first, Ethan sounded confused. Lauren, where are you? Why is your key on the counter? Why did you leave your ring? Then confusion turned into anger. What kind of person cancels a wedding without having a conversation? You can't make a decision like this by yourself. This is my wedding too. By the final messages, the anger had dissolved into panic. Please call me. Whatever happened, we can fix it. I love you. You're scaring me. The last message had arrived at 3:14 that morning. I don't understand what I did. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. I scrolled back through the messages, but I didn't answer any of them. Ethan understood perfectly well what he had done. Maybe he didn't know I had hurt him, but he knew how he had treated me for months. He knew how often he had criticized my choices, mocked my financial caution, and compared me to people who lived more glamorous lives. The conversation with his friends hadn't created the problem. It had simply removed the disguise. I called Melissa. She answered on the second ring. Lauren, are you okay? No, I said. The word came out much smaller than I expected. Melissa didn't interrupt. She waited while I told her everything. The canceled plans. The conversation in the living room. The laughter. Bali. My salary. The other woman. The sentence about making sure I was enough. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Then, Melissa exhaled slowly. I'm going to say something you may not want to hear. Go ahead. I never liked the way he made you feel grateful for being chosen. I leaned back against the hotel headboard. What does that mean? It means every time he asked for something unreasonable, he acted like you were lucky he was willing to marry you anyway. That's not fair. I know. No, I said quickly. I mean, maybe I made him sound worse than he was. Lauren, Herr Thun stopped me. You're defending him less than 24 hours after hearing him humiliate you. I closed my eyes. She continued more gently. Do you remember your birthday dinner last year? Of course I remembered. Ethan had spent most of the evening complaining that the restaurant I chose wasn't upscale enough. When the waiter brought out a small dessert with a candle, Ethan had joked that the whole evening felt budget. I had laughed, because everyone else had laughed. I remember I said, and the Christmas party at his office. I remembered that too. He had introduced me to one of his coworkers as the practical one, and then spent 20 minutes praising another woman's career. At the time, I told myself he was only making conversation. Melissa lowered her voice. You've been shrinking around him for a long time. That sentence stayed with me after we hung up. I spent the rest of Saturday walking without any destination. I bought coffee from a small cafe. I wandered through a bookstore. I sat on a bench near the river and watched people pass. Every few minutes I reached for my phone, expecting to see a wedding countdown notification or a message from a vendor. Instead, there was only the life I had abruptly returned to myself. It should have felt terrifying. Sometimes it did. But beneath the grief, there was something else. Relief. That was the emotion I felt most guilty about. By Sunday morning, Ethan had started contacting other people. Melissa received 2 calls. My younger sister received 5. Even my mother received a message asking whether I had a history of making impulsive decisions. My mother called me immediately. Do you want me to come get you? No. Do you want your father to call him? Definitely not. Do you want me to tell the family? Not yet. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Your aunt already bought a dress. I pressed my lips together, fighting an unexpected wave of tears. I know. And your cousin booked flights. I know. Lauren, I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. It's working. My point is that those things can be replaced. A plane ticket can be changed. A dress can be returned. Years of your life cannot. I covered my eyes with one hand. I thought he loved me. I'm sure part of him did. That answer hurt more than if she had said he never loved me. Because partial love was exactly what I had accepted. Enough affection to keep me invested. Enough criticism to keep me trying. Sunday afternoon, Ethan somehow found Melissa's husband's number. He called while they were eating lunch. Melissa later told me Ethan had started calmly claiming I was having some kind of emotional breakdown. When she refused to tell him where I was, he raised his voice. She doesn't get to destroy 4 years without explaining herself. Melissa replied, Maybe you should think carefully about what you said Thursday night. According to her, the line went silent. That was the moment Ethan realized. You told her, he asked. Melissa said I wasn't there. Then she hung up. He didn't call me again that day. For a few hours, the silence made me uneasy. I imagined him sitting in the apartment, replaying the conversation, trying to determine how much I had heard. Maybe part of me hoped he would finally understand. Not just that I had overheard him, that he had become someone I no longer recognized. Monday arrived with a strange sense of inevitability. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Ethan had a final walkthrough scheduled at the wedding venue. We had arranged it weeks earlier. The coordinator was supposed to show us the room layout, confirm table arrangements, and review the final ceremony schedule. Ethan planned to bring his mother, his older sister, and Marcus, his best man. I knew about the appointment because the reminder was still sitting in my calendar. When I canceled the venue on Friday, I had told the coordinator about the walkthrough. What should we do if someone still arrives? She asked. I thought about Ethan standing in that beautiful lakeside entrance, surrounded by people who still believed there would be a wedding. Put a notice on the door, I said. The coordinator hesitated. A notice. Something simple. The event has been cancelled. Appointment no longer required. At 2:47 Monday afternoon, my phone rang. Ethan. I watched it vibrate across the hotel desk. I didn't answer. It stopped. Then began again. Second call. Third. Fourth. By the 10th, I turned the phone face down. By the 19th, I was standing at the window, staring at the traffic below while the device buzzed behind me like an alarm no one could shut off. Then the voicemails appeared. The first was breathless. Lauren, call me immediately. The second was louder. What the hell did you do? The third was almost a shout. We're standing outside the venue. There's a sign on the door saying the event is cancelled. My mother is here. My sister is here. Marcus is here. Everyone is staring at me like I'm insane. I listened to the next one. You embarrassed me in front of my family. That sentence made something inside me go still. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't asking why. He was furious because the consequences had become public. The humiliation mattered to him more than the hurt he had caused me. The fifth voicemail was worse. Open your phone and act like an adult. I deleted them. Then I blocked his number. Less than 5 minutes later, another call appeared. His mother. I considered ignoring it, but then I answered. Hello? Lauren, what is happening? Her voice was sharp, but underneath it, I could hear genuine panic. Ethan is hysterical. The venue says you canceled everything. I did. You did. Yes. Why? The wedding is off. There was a pause. Off. I'm not marrying Ethan. Lauren, the wedding is in 2 weeks. No, it was in 2 weeks. She inhaled sharply. Does Ethan know this? I left him a note on Friday. He said, your note said you needed space. That isn't what it said. What did it say? That the wedding was cancelled and he shouldn't contact me. Silence. Not complete silence. I could hear muffled voices behind her. Ethan speaking. His sister asking something. A car door closing. Then his mother returned. He told us you left because you were overwhelmed. He lied. Her voice changed slightly. Why would he lie? You'll have to ask him. Lauren, please. We have relatives flying in from Taiwan. We have hotel rooms booked. My husband has already paid for the rehearsal dinner. I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry people are inconvenienced. But I'm not going to marry someone to protect everyone's travel plans. She lowered her voice. What happened between you? I looked down at the engagement ring box sitting on the hotel dresser. I had brought the box with me but left the ring behind. I realized we weren't compatible. That doesn't happen overnight. No, I said. It happens slowly. Sometimes you only understand it overnight. Did Ethan cheat? Not that I know of. Then, what could possibly be serious enough to cancel everything? I thought about telling her. I imagined repeating every word he had said. How her son believed I needed to prove I deserved him. How he had mocked the life I could provide. How casually he had mentioned another woman. But I didn't want to plead my case. I didn't need his mother to approve my decision. I'm not discussing private details. You owe us an explanation. No, I said calmly. I owed Ethan honesty and loyalty. I gave him both for 4 years. She was silent again. Then I heard Ethan in the background. Give me the phone. His mother covered the receiver, but not well enough. What did you say to her? She asked him. Nothing. Then, why is she saying this? She's twisting things. That answer told me everything. Even cornered, he still wasn't taking responsibility. His mother returned to the call. Lauren, he says this is a misunderstanding. It isn't. Can the two of you just meet tonight? No. Think about what you're doing. I have. Think about your future. I finally am. I ended the call. For the next hour, my phone remained quiet. Then the social media posts began. Ethan uploaded a black background with white text. Sometimes the person you trust most reveals how little your love meant to them. An hour later, he posted again. 4 years erased without a conversation. Then, real commitment means staying when things get difficult. Friends began reacting. Some sent him hearts. Some wrote that he deserved better. One person commented, "She really canceled everything without warning." He replied, "Apparently I never knew her." I took screenshots. Not because I planned to expose him, because a small part of me still feared I would someday doubt my own memory. I needed proof that even after what happened, Ethan saw himself as the victim. By Tuesday morning, several mutual friends had messaged me. Most were cautious. "Is everything okay? Do you need anything? What happened?" I gave each person the same answer. Ethan and I had fundamental differences. I ended the relationship. I'm not discussing private details. A few respected that. Others didn't. One of Ethan's closest friends called me cruel. Another said canceling the venue without confronting him was emotionally abusive. Marcus sent me a message that said, "You could have handled this privately instead of humiliating him." I typed a response, then deleted it, because I had handled it privately. Ethan was the one turning it into a public campaign. By Wednesday, his posts had become more dramatic. He wrote about abandonment. He wrote about betrayal. He wrote that some people pretend to support your dreams until they realize they can't control you. That one almost impressed me. The man who had spent months telling me my dreams weren't ambitious enough was now accusing me of control. I stayed silent. And for a while, his version became the accepted version. The devoted fiancé, the heartless bride, the canceled wedding, the locked venue, the 19 ignored calls. What nobody knew was that someone else had been in the living room Thursday night. Someone who had heard every word. On Wednesday evening, an unfamiliar number called me. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. Loren. A man's voice. "Yes. It's Daniel." I recognized the name immediately. Daniel was one of Ethan's friends. He had been in our apartment that night. "I need to talk to you," he said. "About what?" There was a long pause. Then he said, "About what Ethan told us when he thought you weren't home." Daniel's voice sounded different from the way I remembered it. At parties, he was always the loud one, the man who told stories with his hands, laughed before reaching the punchline, and ordered another round before anyone asked. Now he sounded careful, almost ashamed. "What about it?" I asked. He exhaled. "I know you heard us." The hotel room suddenly felt colder. "How do you know?" "Ethan told us you canceled everything because you overheard the conversation." Of course he had. Not because he wanted to take responsibility, but because he needed to control the explanation before someone else did, Daniel continued. "He said you misunderstood. That we were joking around." "Were you?" There was a pause. "We were drinking." That wasn't my question. "No," he admitted. "Not entirely." I sat on the edge of the bed. Outside the window, rain streaked the glass and blurred the city lights into long silver lines. Daniel spoke again. "I've been thinking about it since Friday." "Why?" "Because I laughed." There it was. Not an excuse. A confession. He continued before I could respond. "When Ethan said you needed to prove you were worth marrying, I laughed. When he complained about the honeymoon and your salary, I laughed again." "I remember." His voice dropped. "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. Part of me wanted to tell him his apology changed nothing. Another part wanted to hear someone from that room admit I hadn't imagined the cruelty. Daniel cleared his throat. "Marcus keeps saying you overreacted. But he knows exactly what Ethan said. We all do. Then why is everyone pretending he was abandoned for no reason? Because Ethan told us not to get involved?" I let out a humorless laugh. "He's posting about me publicly." "I know. And privately telling you not to get involved." "I know." Daniel sounded sickened by his own answer. He said you'd calm down eventually. That once you realized how much money and embarrassment were involved, you'd come back. That sentence didn't surprise me. Ethan had always believed practical pressure could overpower emotion. He thought deposits, family expectations, and public shame would drag me back into place. Daniel continued. "But then he started telling people you'd been unstable for months." My fingers tightened around the phone. "What?" "He said you were jealous, controlling, that you'd been looking for an excuse to punish him." I stared at the rain. It was strange how betrayal could keep evolving. First, Ethan had humiliated me. Then, he had lied about why I left. Now he was rewriting our entire relationship to justify himself. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because it's wrong." Was it wrong before the wedding was canceled? Daniel went silent. The answer was obvious. It had been wrong when he laughed, wrong when he said nothing, wrong when Ethan began lying. It had only become uncomfortable once the consequences grew large enough to affect everyone else. "I deserve that," Daniel said quietly. "I'm not trying to punish you." "I know." He inhaled slowly. "I talked to another guy who was there. Aaron. He feels terrible too." I remembered Aaron's voice from that night. He had been the one who asked whether I had planned most of the wedding. At least he had questioned Ethan. Then he had still laughed. Daniel said, "Would you be okay if we told people what actually happened?" My first instinct was, no. I didn't want my private humiliation turned into another piece of social entertainment. I didn't want strangers debating whether Ethan's exact words were bad enough to justify leaving, but I was tired of being cast as a heartless woman who had destroyed a wedding for sport. "I'm not posting anything," I said. "You don't have to. I'm not arguing with Ethan online. I understand. And I'm not giving anyone screenshots or making some public statement." Daniel hesitated. "So you don't want us to say anything?" I looked at the messages still sitting on my screen. Cruel, unstable, controlling, abusive. All words Ethan had allowed other people to attach to me while he protected himself. "Tell the truth," I said. "Nothing more." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Okay." "And Daniel?" "Yeah. Don't make yourself the hero." He swallowed audibly. "I won't." The first shift happened that night. Aaron commented under one of Ethan's posts. "That isn't the full story, and you know it." The comment disappeared within minutes. Then Daniel posted something of his own. He didn't mention my name. He didn't mention Ethan's. He wrote, "Watching someone humiliate their partner behind closed doors and then pretend to be blindsided by the consequences is cowardice. Laughing along makes you part of it. I'm ashamed that I did." People understood immediately. Questions flooded the comments. What happened? Is this about the canceled wedding? What did he say? Daniel didn't respond publicly, but he began answering mutual friends privately. By Thursday morning, the story had spread. Not my version. The truth. Ethan had said I needed to prove I deserved him. He had complained that my career and income weren't impressive enough. He had mocked our honeymoon because I wanted to stay within budget. He had joked about pursuing another woman. He had called me safe, dépendable, not exciting. And he had wondered aloud whether I was enough. The reaction was immediate. Some people apologized to me. Others quietly deleted the messages they had sent. A woman I barely knew wrote, "I'm sorry I judged you. I would have left too." Another mutual friend admitted Ethan had complained about me before. Apparently, at a birthday dinner several months earlier, he had said marrying me was the sensible option. At a bachelor weekend, he had joked that he hoped marriage wouldn't limit his possibilities. Each new detail felt like another window opening in a house I hadn't realized was dark. The Thursday night conversation hadn't been an isolated act. It had been the only one I happened to overhear. By Friday, Ethan deleted all his posts. That didn't stop the questions. People began asking why he had lied about my note. Why he had told his family I only needed space. Why he had publicly accused me of control while privately admitting I had heard him insult me. His sister unfollowed him. Marcus stopped defending him. Even his mother sent me a short message. I understand more now. I'm sorry. I read it twice, then set my phone down without replying. It wasn't forgiveness I wanted. It was distance. 2 weeks after I left on the morning that should have been our wedding day, I woke before sunrise. For several seconds, I didn't remember the date. Then my calendar notification appeared. Wedding day. I stared at the words. Somewhere, relatives who had planned to dress for a ceremony were waking up in hotel rooms or changing flights home. Somewhere, the venue was preparing for another event. Somewhere, my unworn dress hung inside a garment bag at my parents' house. I expected grief to crush me. Instead, I felt hollow, not relieved, not devastated, just emptied out. At 9:17 a.m., an unknown number called. I answered against my better judgment. Lauren. Ethan. His voice was rough. "Please don't hang up. My hand tightened around the phone. What do you want? 10 minutes. There's nothing left to discuss. I know you talked to Daniel. I didn't ask him to call. He's destroying my life. No, Ethan. He told people what you said. I was joking. You keep changing the explanation. I was drunk. You said you were joking. I was both. I closed my eyes. Behind him, I could hear silence. No friends. No family. No celebration. Just the sound of a man sitting alone on the morning he had expected to become my husband. He continued, I was trying to impress the guys. By humiliating me. I didn't think you were there. That's exactly the problem. Lauren, please. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did you mean it? He hesitated. I've been under pressure. From what? The wedding. Money. Expectations. Whose expectations? He didn't answer. Yours, I said. They were always yours. That's not fair. No. Fair would have been telling me directly that you were disappointed in the life we were building instead of performing for your friends. I wasn't disappointed in you. You called me safe. That isn't an insult. You said dependable wasn't exciting. I was talking nonsense. You said you needed to know if I was enough. His breathing changed. For the first time, he had no immediate defense. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. I made one mistake. One conversation. Yes. One conversation I heard. He said nothing. How many didn't I hear? Lauren, how many times did you compare me to other women? I don't know. How many times did you tell your friends I wasn't ambitious enough? I was venting. How many times did you joke that marrying me was settling? That's not what I meant. But you said it. Silence stretched between us. Then, he began to cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a broken sound he tried to swallow. I love you. I looked around the hotel room that had become my temporary home. 2 weeks earlier, those words would have reached every vulnerable part of me. Now they felt too small. Maybe you do, I said, but you don't respect me. I do. No. You respected what I provided. Stability, planning, loyalty. Someone who kept trying harder every time you suggested she wasn't enough. That isn't true. It is. I can change. Why would I trust that? Because 4 years should mean something. They do. My voice trembled, but I didn't stop. They mean I know how often I excused you. How often I laughed when you embarrassed me. How many times I reduced myself so you could feel larger. He was openly sobbing now. Please meet me. No. Just once. No. I need closure. You had 4 years to be honest with me. Lauren, today was supposed to be our wedding. I know. How can you be so cold? That almost broke me. Not because it was true, because it was the same manipulation in a new form. If I protected myself, I was cold. If I returned, I was loving. If I accepted disrespect, I was committed. I'm not cold, I said. I'm finally listening to what you showed me. I said I'm sorry. And I believe you're sorry this cost you something. He inhaled sharply. That's cruel. No. Cruel was tearing me apart to entertain your friends and then calling me unstable when I left. He had no answer. I looked at the pale morning light spreading across the floor. For the first time, the date didn't feel like the anniversary of something stolen. It felt like the day I had escaped. Goodbye, Ethan. Lauren, wait. I ended the call, blocked the number, then turned off the wedding reminder permanently. 3 months have passed since I canceled the wedding. For the first few weeks, time moved strangely. Some mornings disappeared before I had even understood they had begun. Other days seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with paperwork explanations, forwarded mail, and the quiet dismantling of a life I had once believed was permanent. I moved out of the extended stay hotel after 5 weeks. The new apartment was smaller than the place Ethan and I had shared. It had 1 bedroom, narrow windows, an outdated kitchen, and a balcony, barely large enough for a chair and a potted plant. I loved it immediately. There were no framed engagement photographs on the walls, no wedding brochures on the coffee table, no voice from another room asking why I had chosen the cheaper option. The first night, I sat on the floor, eating takeout, because my furniture had not arrived yet. The apartment was almost completely silent. For years, silence had made me nervous. Silence meant Ethan was irritated. Silence meant I had failed to anticipate something. Silence meant I needed to begin guessing what I had done wrong. But that night, silence felt different. It felt peaceful. It belonged to me. I unpacked slowly over the next several days. I placed my grandmother's necklace inside the top drawer of my dresser. I arranged books along the living room wall. I bought a cheap coffee table and assembled it myself, even though one leg remained slightly uneven. When I finished, I stepped back and laughed. Ethan would have hated it. That realization made me like it more. I began rebuilding friendships I had neglected during the relationship. Melissa and I started meeting every Sunday morning for coffee. My sister came over to help me choose curtains, though she mostly sat on the kitchen counter and criticized every color I showed her. At work, I volunteered for a project I had previously avoided because Ethan complained whenever my schedule became unpredictable. The project led to more responsibility, then a promotion. When my manager told me, my first instinct was to wonder whether Ethan would think the salary increase was impressive enough. The thought arrived so automatically that it frightened me. Then I remembered there was no longer anyone waiting to evaluate me. I accepted the promotion. That evening, I bought myself a bottle of champagne and drank one glass alone on the balcony. The city lights stretched beyond the rooftops. I raised the glass toward them. "To being enough," I whispered. I heard occasional updates about Ethan through mutual friends, though I never asked for them. His closest circle had fractured after Daniel and Aaron told the truth. Marcus eventually admitted Ethan had made similar comments before. He said Ethan often compared me to women with more prestigious careers, wealthier families, or larger social followings. According to Marcus, everyone had assumed it was harmless complaining. That phrase stayed with me. Harmless complaining. People use words like that to make cruelty sound ordinary. Ethan's sister stopped speaking to him for several weeks after discovering he had lied to their mother about my note. His parents canceled the rehearsal dinner and lost part of their deposit. Relatives returned wedding gifts. Some had already flown in and turned the abandoned weekend into an awkward family vacation. I felt bad for them, but I did not feel responsible. There is a difference. Ethan moved out of our old apartment when the lease ended. I heard he stayed with his parents for a while, then found a place with Marcus. His social media disappeared for almost a month. When he returned, the posts were vague. Quotes about growth, forgiveness, becoming a better man. For a few days, people praised him. Then Daniel commented beneath one of the posts. "Growth starts with accountability." The post vanished an hour later. 6 weeks after the canceled wedding, Melissa called me. "Ethan asked me to give you a message." I closed my eyes. "What message?" "He wants to meet for coffee." "No." I told him you'd probably say that. "What does he want?" "Closure." I almost laughed. Closure had become his favorite word. As if closure were something I owed him. As if I had walked away without explanation. As if the ring, the note, the canceled wedding, the final phone call, and every truth revealed afterward had not been enough. "Tell him I already have closure," I said. Melissa paused. "Are you sure?" "Yes." She didn't push. After we hung up, I thought about what closure actually meant. It was not an apology. It was not one last conversation where Ethan finally chose the perfect words. Closure was hearing the truth when he thought I wasn't listening. Closure was realizing his private opinion of me mattered more than every public promise he had made. Closure was leaving before the vows made escape more complicated. The $9,000 I lost in deposits still bothered me occasionally. I would see the amount in my old budgeting spreadsheet and feel a sharp ache. $9,000 could have paid for months of rent. It could have funded a vacation. It could have stayed in savings. But regret never followed. I began thinking of it as the cost of learning the truth before it became legally and emotionally more expensive. $9,000 was painful. A decade of trying to satisfy Ethan would have cost far more. Confidence, friendships, opportunities, maybe children raised in a home where their mother was constantly measured and found lacking. No refund could have repaired that. About 2 months after I moved, I began dating again. Nothing serious. A drink with a colleague's friend. Dinner with a man I met at a bookstore. One uncomfortable evening with someone who spent 40 minutes describing his investment portfolio. I learned to notice things I had ignored before. How a man spoke about his ex-girlfriend, whether compliments contained hidden criticism, whether he listened or merely waited for his turn to speak, whether I felt relaxed around him or found myself auditioning. The bookstore man Noah asked me on our second date why my engagement had ended. I considered giving the polite answer. We wanted different things. Instead, I told him a smaller version of the truth. He made me feel like love was something I had to keep earning. Noah nodded. That sounds exhausting. It was such a simple response. He didn't question whether I had overreacted. He didn't ask what I could have done differently. He didn't defend a man he had never met. He simply believed me. We went out twice more. There was no dramatic romance, but there was kindness. For now, that was enough. One evening, Derek, an old college friend I had reconnected with, asked whether I regretted how I ended things. We were sitting at a neighborhood bar after work. "Do you ever wish you had confronted him that night?" he asked. Before canceling everything, I thought about it carefully. No, not even a little. If I had confronted him immediately, he would have explained it away. Derek nodded. He would have said he was joking, that he was drunk, that I was too sensitive. Then he would have apologized and I would have wanted to believe him. And the wedding? It probably would have happened. The thought made my stomach tighten. Derek traced a circle through the condensation on his glass. Some people think what you did was harsh. I know. Does that bother you? Not anymore. Because harshness and cruelty are not the same thing. Cruelty is humiliating someone you claim to love because their pain entertains your friends. Harshness is refusing to volunteer for more of it. Ethan's words were not spoken during a fight. They were not shouted in anger. They were delivered casually between laughter and drinks when he believed there would be no consequences. That was why I trusted them. People reveal themselves most clearly when they think the person they are discussing will never hear. The last update I received came from his sister. She sent me a brief message saying Ethan had started therapy and was trying to understand why he needed constant admiration. I hoped it was true. Not because I wanted him back. Because I wanted the next woman he loved to meet a better version of him than I did. But his growth was no longer my responsibility. That lesson took me longer to learn than anything else. Love does not require you to remain nearby while someone decides whether to respect you. Sometimes, leaving is the lesson. Sometimes, losing you is the consequence. And sometimes the wedding you cancel becomes the event that saves your life. On what would have been our 3-month anniversary, I booked a flight to Costa Rica. The destination Ethan had mocked. The affordable honeymoon he believed proved I lacked ambition. I went with Melissa. On our second evening, we sat beside the ocean as the sun dropped into the water. The sky turned gold, then violet. Melissa lifted her drink. To the wedding that never happened. I smiled and touched my glass to hers. No, I said. To the life that did. For years I believed being chosen was proof of my worth. Now I understand something better. The right person will not treat love like an examination. They will not keep changing the questions until you fail. They will not ask you to perform, compete, or beg for approval. And when someone tells the world you are not enough, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is believe them not about yourself but about their inability to value you. I lost a wedding. I lost money. I lost the future I had planned. But I found the one thing Ethan had convinced me I still needed to earn. My own respect.